Good evening, everybody. My name is Kwame Sarfo-Mensah, and welcome to another episode of IDTALK4ED Educators Live, the show for the unsung heroes in education. And if you are a first-time viewer watching us for the first time, we welcome you and we hope you come back for future episodes. So tonight, we're going to be talking about a very important topic, especially now during this pandemic. We have a lot of people who are out of jobs, people who are waiting for the next paycheck, and a lot of idle time on our hands. So with that being said, we wanted to get into a conversation about entrepreneurship, not specifically for adults, but for our young people who are out of school and need to find different ways to use their time productively. So we have a special guest who's going to help us facilitate that conversation. Her name is Patricia Clahar, and she is the founder of Hands-On Entrepreneurship for Kids, which provides in-person online solutions to families, schools, and youth organizations that want to support young entrepreneurs. So we're going to talk about the benefits of entrepreneurship and why we need to have more of these programs in our public schools. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in our special guest, Patricia Clahar, to the show. Welcome, Patricia.
Thank you, Kwame.
So how are we doing today?
I'm good. It's almost Friday, so, we're almost there to the weekend where you can relax a little bit more. So, yeah, I've been good this week. It's been busy, but good.
Oh, absolutely. So how have you been holding up during the pandemic?
I actually think I've been lucky in that respect because 2 years before this pandemic, I started working from home. So working from home is nothing new to me. That part of my life hasn't changed too much. Other things have, of course, but, nothing I can't manage. I think there are definitely other people who have much bigger problems than I do right now. So,
Oh, yeah, for sure. I know we're blessed to just be able to have work. Some of us aren't fortunate enough to be in that position, so we definitely count our blessings during this time.
Right.
But before we get into our conversation, I wanted to give you an opportunity to just share a little bit about yourself, your upbringing, and what brought you into the world of education.
Well, I think getting into the world of education was a little bit by accident, but I definitely think in hindsight, I think there are two things that kind of pushed me in this direction. One, just as a kid growing up, I was very into school. I loved school. I thought it was really fun to learn cool new things. I was really into math and science. I thought those things were cool. So just any day I could learn something new about that stuff, I loved it. And, on the flip side, just teaching and sharing the information that you have with other people, I also got a lot out of that. So I think that has kind of always stuck with me. That exchange of information is just something that really I always kind of was into. But the other thing that I think pushed me even further in this direction was that both of my parents are entrepreneurs. They're immigrants from Jamaica, and they started a school, of all things, when I was a kid. So, that being the family business and spending a lot of time at the school, working in the office, working in the classroom, working with teachers and students and families, I think that all just was really ingrained into me at a very young age. And, as I got into adulthood and started working, every time I strayed from education, I ended up regretting it and finally just realized that education is my thing and I just need to just roll with it instead of trying to fight it.
Right. So I know that you've been in the field for 12 years.
Mhm.
And was some of that time you were in the classroom for some of those years, though, before transitioning into entrepreneurship for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I spent a lot of time in the classroom. I mean, technically, if you want to go all the way back to when I was a kid, I was a teenager, and
Yeah.
I was always the teacher's assistant on call at my parents' school, obviously. But I worked in various classrooms in private schools in New York and Connecticut. And then I've also done some other types of education work. I've worked in supplemental education, like after school programs and one-on-one tutoring, things like that. And now I'm working in this new capacity in education.
Oh, that's great. And just a little fact about myself, I'm actually a Connecticut native. So I grew up in Connecticut,
Okay.
grew up in Bloomfield, so not too far from Hartford.
Yeah. I was
So
going to say it's
yeah,
not too close to where I am, but I know it's in that Hartford area.
yeah. So the only thing I still have to my name is my 860 area code on my phone. Other than that, everything else has changed over to other area codes in different locations because I moved around quite a bit.
Gotcha.
But um, but let's get into why we're here. So I know that the topic is on entrepreneurship, and we have a lot of young people who are at home trying to figure out what to do between the time they wake up and the time that they're done with their virtual classes with their schools. So, can you just tell us what gave you the idea to start hands-on entrepreneurship for kids? Why kids instead of adults?
Yes. Okay. Good question. And there's lots of different programs and things like that for adults who are interested in entrepreneurship. But for me, I thought it was really important to provide something for kids and teens because I think it's really important to start anything that you want to really develop mastery in at a young age. I mean, mastery requires more than anything else time and experience and practice. So,
Mhm.
I mean, the earlier that kids can start learning these skills and developing these skills, the more time they have to get really good at it and to make it work for them by the time, they're adults and they're actually really building their, generational wealth. I mean, they can have had a lot of practice by then if they start early.
No, absolutely. And I could just think back to my own childhood. I remember people coming to my school, my classrooms, and they were people from junior achievement because back then, if you want to learn about business, the basics of investing your money and keeping track of your accounts, junior achievement would come into your school to do short presentations in your classroom. So that was my first introduction to money outside of my family. And then you fast forward to my high school years, I'm working at Dunkin' Donuts, minimum wage job, getting
Right.
5.15 an hour, and whatever money I earned from my check, I'm spending it right away on things that are very materialistic. I'm spending it on, you know, shoes. I'm spending it on clothes, and that's just my 15-year-old mind at that time.
Right.
Never in my wildest dreams that I think about saving some of that money, opening a bank account. I didn't even have a bank account at that time. I was
Mhm.
just spending money out of my pocket. It'll go in, go out. So I want to just really focus on that part because a lot of young people, they get the money and they did exactly what I did. So I'm
Mm.
seeing this cycle happening. What are the benefits of entrepreneurs at my age and even younger starting, early?
So yeah, besides the time that allows you to get better at this skill, I think the other thing that can be really helpful about it is it does teach a lot of soft skills, a lot of practical life skills. A lot of social emotional learning is all balled up into this activity. And part of one of the things that I really focus on with my students in terms of life skills is the money management part, because you're right. You can have money coming in. It could be $5 an hour. It could be $500 an hour. But if you don't know how to retain it, you will still end up with $0 and 0 cents tomorrow or
Mhm.
next week. And I think one of the things that's really interesting about entrepreneurship is I always take this perspective that when you're an entrepreneur, you're trying to build something long term, something sustainable. And I think when that becomes the goal, the few dollars that come in today, or maybe they're a lot of dollars, whatever, the dollars that come in today, I think start to have a different meaning when your goal is to continue building something, as opposed to just, I work to get this money and this money is for me to have fun with, to buy sneakers and movie tickets and stuff like that. So I think when you kind of, change the scope of this project to something that's long-term, and this is your baby that you're building and you're growing, you can't just take all those dollars and spend them on sneakers if you want your business to grow. So, I think that can also give kids another reason to kind of assign more value or more importance to those dollars coming in and not be frivolous about how they spend it.
No, I hear you. But I think it takes a lot of discipline and patience, which a lot of children do not have at that age. I mean, I know being in my 30s now, I have that discipline, I have that patience, but
Mhm.
20 plus years ago, that was not the case. So if you told me, hey, just take your time with it, take baby steps, I'm like, no, I want it right now. I'm trying to get this money right now. I don't know what you're
Right.
talking about, but I need that
Mhm.
now. But let's talk about the steps because it's a process, as you've mentioned. You
Mhm.
don't just start a business and then you just get rich right away. Like you
Right.
have to take certain steps and guidelines in order to get to the ultimate goal.
Mhm.
So, what are some steps that young teens and kids can take in their entrepreneurship journey?
So in order to get started, one of the things I'll just let you know about right now, one of the resources that I have that's absolutely free and available to everyone is a playbook that I have. It's a playbook for kids and teens in business. And in the playbook, I talk about a really simple framework that I use to teach entrepreneurship. There are 7 steps to startup success. So if you really want to kind of look at the whole process and how I simplify it for kids, that playbook is definitely a great resource for you. But the first step, it always starts with that idea in your head. That's really where it always originates. So any kid, any teenager that wants to get started, I always tell them, you got to start with that idea. You got to come up with that winning idea. It's really important because that's the foundation of your business. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time to come up with that really good idea. Sometimes the first idea is not the best idea. So I always encourage kids when they're thinking about a business idea. First of all, you may be excited about things that you want to do, things
Right.
that you want to create for other people, but remember that you got to prioritize your potential customer first. No matter what things you would love to put out there in the world, you got to make sure that there's a customer out there for it. So I always encourage students, think about the problem that you want to solve. Think about the person who you want to solve that problem for.
Mhm.
And that's a great starting point for a business idea because every successful business is founded on solving a problem for somebody, a significant problem. And if your business doesn't do that, you're going to have a hard time staying in business no matter what you do, no matter how hard you work, because people don't want to trade their dollars for something that doesn't improve their lives, that doesn't
Right.
help them, that doesn't solve a problem for them. That's a tough sell. So I always encourage students, no matter what you would love to do, think about the problem first. Think about the customer first. And then after that, think about what skills, what talents, what passions, what interests you have that you can bring to the table to solve that problem for that person. And anybody who wants to think even deeper about this and wants to actually come up with business ideas, I have
Mhm.
another ebook that you should check out. It's called the Business Idea Generator, and it really helps kids to balance those two things: the problem that you solve, the people that you want to help, and what I love to do, what I'm really interested in, where my passions are. Because when you can marry those two things, that's like the perfect storm for a winning business idea, in my opinion.
No, that's awesome. Now, just to clarify, when you say prioritizing the customer, that involves some type of market or consumer research, right? You have to be able to figure out what the market is right now. So, just for example, we're in the midst of COVID-19.
Right.
schools are out. So if you're an educator like I am, you're thinking about how to educate the children virtually. So there's some people who have started tutoring businesses. There are people who are doing e-classes, some type of virtual course. So I've seen YouTube channels. So there's a lot going on in the world in terms of just innovation and coming up with ways to address the customers. So with that, I'm just wondering,
Mhm.
is it possible to monetize on any talent you have? Because it just seems like you go on YouTube, there are kids that are 8 years old, they already got $1 million, and they're doing something that you would think you don't even need to go to school for that, but yet they are generating revenue based
Yeah.
on just videos, whether it's a TikTok, whether it's YouTube, whether it's IG, all these different social media outlets. So,
Yep.
what have they figured out that older folks like myself are still trying to figure out? What's the
um,
secret?
what's the secret? The secret
Right?
sauce. At the end of the day, I would say that any of those successful accounts has stumbled on a solution to a problem.
Mhm.
Now, sometimes thinking of the problem and thinking of the solution is very deliberate, right? Like you said, educators, right? We can all see right now that providing education, there are challenges and we need some new solutions. So that's a very, deliberate, here's the problem, let me come up with a solution. But sometimes kids, especially, but even adults, but kids on social media, a lot of kids are just kind of like very comfortable and free
Yeah.
on social media and in the digital
Mhm.
world, and they'll just try things and put things out there, and then all of a sudden they'll realize, oh my goodness, that one thing that I did last Thursday, it went viral for some reason. People love this.
Mhm.
And the ones who are smart will notice that blip and they'll figure out a way to capitalize on it, to reproduce that success
Mhm.
or to reproduce whatever it was about that made people love it so much. And then once they can do that and they start to amass this audience, well, an audience has value to any other advertiser out there. So, if you have a YouTube channel and you have enough of an audience, well, now YouTube will pay you to place ads on your channel. So I think sometimes kids, because they're so willing to just try things and be silly sometimes they'll stumble on something that really solves a problem. And when I say problem, the problem could be, how to entertain myself at 9 o'clock at night on a Wednesday. Sometimes that's the problem,
Mhm.
right? It doesn't have to be a deep, serious problem. Sometimes the problem is how to make myself laugh or, how to kill some time over the weekend. And they stumble on something that works for a lot of people. And then they have the power to leverage that and they can monetize that.
Yeah.
So I think the answer to your question in a long winded way is if you can find the audience for whatever random talent you have, then yes, you can monetize it as long
Yeah.
as you can find the audience.
And I think there's an audience for everybody.
I think they're out there.
I
If
think
you're
there's an audience for
creative,
everybody.
yeah, you can find them.
No, for sure. But while I have you on, over the past few days, I've come across so many phenomenal young people who are doing what you are preaching tonight. They found the market, they found an audience, and they have figured out a way to produce a product that's going to enhance the lives of their customers. So, if you don't mind, I wanted to show an example of a few people.
Sure.
There's one person in particular I want to show. I'm going to share the screen so you can see who she is. And I came across her maybe a week ago.
Yeah, I think I saw this. Was this
I
sheer
think
clothing t-shirts or
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, it was
So,
cool.
and this is, she's 13 years old. Her name is
Mhm.
Jada Huffman, CEO of I Am Apparel. And the cool thing about her shirts is It's focusing on historical figures in Black history, Latin American history, indigenous history. And there are a lot of companies that make shirts like this already. But here's the part that makes it special. And I actually want to play a short video on that.
Having trouble scanning your shirt? Here's an option you may have missed. When you go to the official I'm Apparel app, you can press on I am codes. This is when all the heroes and revolutionaries will show up. You press on the one that coordinates with your t-shirt. Then, underneath your QR code, you'll find a set of numbers. This is your I am code that you can put into the page to release the same exclusive content you find by scanning your shirt. So, don't forget to place your order today. Having trouble.
And that is a 13-year-old who
Yeah.
created this. It's like
Yep.
she created a shirt that's like the Smithsonian. You have the Smithsonian on a shirt. Just scan it with the accompanying app, and you get information about the person who's on your shirt. That's just innovation at its finest.
Yeah, that's sophisticated for a 13-year-old, isn't it?
It is. And it
Yeah.
just makes me wonder, just as a teacher who's been in the public school system for over a decade and has taught many students who have come and go. My next question is focusing on entrepreneurship education. Do you think that public schools should integrate entrepreneurship education in their curriculum with fidelity? I want to add, so that young people can fully utilize their digital skills and really take advantage of their talents.
Yeah, 100%. Yes, I do think that public schools and schools in general should integrate more of this type of education. I think one thing that is like really interesting about our new digital world is that in terms of entrepreneurship, it has leveled the playing field in some really amazing ways, right? I mean, there are still, of course, going to be some disparities, but in terms of barriers to entry and, sometimes how much capital you might need to get an idea off the ground, that's really changed a lot. And I think that there are so many more opportunities that are now available that we're not teaching students how to take advantage of. We're still mostly focusing on, the more traditional opportunities that, have been available for decades, upon decades. But there are so many new opportunities out there,
Yeah.
and we need to give them the skills in order to be able to leverage those to their advantage. I think it's really important that this type of education not only be handed down through families, but also needs to become more accessible, to the larger society. Because I think sometimes that type of information can become, what's the word? I guess it becomes easily available to some people if you happen to have parents who came from a certain place or had certain experiences, and then it becomes very inaccessible to other people who aren't, from that community or from those families that have that kind of education. So I think public schools and schools in general can really play a role in just making that information more available so that everybody has the opportunity to take advantage of these new things.
No, absolutely. And I just think about the kids who are disengaged in school, not because they're not capable of doing the work, it's just because they made a conscious decision to not do it. They don't
Mhm.
see the relevance in the work that's being given to them. And I feel like if we spend more time listening to our children and really gain a sense of what engages them and shape a curriculum that actually touches on those different attributes and skills, maybe it'll be more buy-in when they're in the classroom. And that's been a struggle I know for me personally with a lot of students because they want to be in school. And then there's some who don't want to be there because they feel like it's boring, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think we need to figure out a way to address that. Now, do you feel like it needs a revamping? Our education system, we need to revamp it completely in order to include entrepreneurship education, or is it a case where we have to just have a minor tweak? Because we do have vocational schools where they do talk about entrepreneurship, but it's like an elective class. It's
Mhm.
not something that's an integral part of the overall curriculum. It's something that, okay, if you want to just get a couple credits to add on, you could just take this class, but it's not a requirement to take. I mean, how can we
Mhm.
get it in there so that it's intentional for people to take?
So that's a good question, and I think the answer, may be different given different school communities and different needs and things like that. But I do think that it can be as simple as, I mean, if you want to go like super simple, you could just do a workshop, a one-off, kind of like junior achievement used to do.
Yeah.
Like those workshops, I crafted an intro workshop that basically introduces kids to the concept of entrepreneurship, introduces them to other kids who have started businesses and have been doing it for a while, and then takes them through that first step of ideas and coming up with business ideas. So it could be something as simple as that, a one day, one afternoon workshop to get the creative juices flowing and get these ideas into kids' heads. And if it's something they want to pursue on their own beyond the workshop, I definitely have resources that can support that family. But if you want to do more in the school, the next kind of level I would imagine is like an after school program or something like that. Something that meets regularly so that these kids can actually work on this consistently with, an adult at the school who can give them some support. And they can really kind of execute and take this idea all the way to launch right there in the school system. And again, if you do it kind of as an after school, it doesn't have to be mandatory for everyone. I don't necessarily think that every student needs entrepreneurship. What I do think is that every student needs access to this type of education if they want it, if they feel like it's something they're interested in. So I think it can work really well and really easily in an after school program or like an elective class that happens during the day. But then if you want to really talk about the next level, there are actually schools that are wholly founded around entrepreneurship. Like their whole curriculum, their whole
Mhm.
philosophy revolves around entrepreneurship. I know there's one school. Do you know the Acton schools?
Acting schools,
Acton, Acton, Acton.
ACTON. That does sound
Yeah.
familiar.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that's basically their approach, is that just everything kind of revolves around entrepreneurship, which is really cool. Now that requires a complete revamping, obviously.
Mhm.
But I mean, you can take it to that level if you want to. I remember back in when I was teaching in a Montessori school and they had an entrepreneurship program there at
Yeah.
that school. I remember the last year that we worked that program, third year we were doing that program. It was so awesome. And the kids loved it so much because we had really worked hard to kind of build in a lot of choice and decision making and autonomy for the kids. And after that program was done, some of us teachers sat around and we actually talked about this idea. We were like, guys, you could just create a whole curriculum that revolves around this project. A whole school could revolve around this, and they could learn every other discipline through this lens of
Yes.
entrepreneurship. I mean, it's possible.
Yes, it is.
So, yeah, I mean, it's so much fun to think about all the different iterations that this could take. At least for me, it is. But no, it doesn't require a revamping, which is, I think, the important part. You can do something very simple. You can start small, and then, as time goes on, grow it into something more comprehensive if that's what works for your school community.
And I feel like that would be a viable option for many schools because I know there's this pressure of standardized testing. I know this year is pretty much off the table
Yeah.
because of the pandemic. But once we do get back to some sense of normalcy, there's going to be that question of, well, how am I going to create time for this and not to prepare my kids to take, their end of year test, which
Right.
will determine whether or not I still have a job at my school, the same job that I need to provide for my family and to put a roof over their table. So there are these pressures that are hindering folks from taking that leap of faith, if you will.
Mm.
So I hope we do change the mindsets of some of our top officials in our districts because it's so essential. And because it's so essential, I know you're about to say something. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to agree with you and say that, I think that you need buy-in from the top.
Mm-hmm.
If that's going to work in a public school setting, like you were saying, those top officials, they have to buy in that this is important also. Right. I think that that's really important. So, if there are teachers, the educators out there, if you're struggling to kind of sell this to the next level of faculty, send me a message and we can talk about how you can sell it.
All right.
I'll definitely help you fight that fight.
Well, this is a perfect segue because we're coming to the end of the show. I wanted to share your website so that parents can get at you for some advice on entrepreneurship for their young ones. So we'll just share the website right here. And maybe you could just walk us through how parents can access the site, where to click, how to get more information.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the homepage that we're looking at. And if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see two buttons. One says parent/guardian or young entrepreneur. So if you're, working with your son, daughter, or, you're working with the family situation, definitely click that button. You'll get taken to the playbook that I mentioned, that free playbook for kids and teens.
All right,
And that's a great starting point. You can go ahead and click on it.
I'll click on that.
Yeah.
And free gift here.
There you go.
And there you have it, a playbook.
There you go.
Free, people. It is free.
It's free for the taking. Definitely, like I said, the 7 steps to startup success, that little framework breaks it down really simply if you're trying to explain this to your kids. And it also talks about some helpful tips for you as a parent and also for your kids. And there are some stories about my own entrepreneurial adventures as a kid in the playbook. So kids might find that entertaining. Especially my trip to the principal's office. Oh man.
Oh, those are always interesting stories.
Yeah.
And I see myself. All right. So, and there is another tab for educators.
Yes, exactly. So educators that are looking for support, if you want to bring something like this to your school or your youth organization, I can definitely help you with that. So if you click on the button at the bottom, it'll explain how you can work with me as an educator. Basically, you just need to think about what your needs are, and you don't have to have them, 100% crystal clear, all figured out, but just, have a general sense of what it is you're trying to do. And then you can schedule a 30-minute discovery call with me so we can talk about your idea, talk about how I might be able to help, talk about removing some of the obstacles in your way. And then whatever solutions we talk about, if you're interested in going further, you can request a quote and then we can move forward from there. Pretty easy.
All right. Sounds good. So, Patricia, I just want to thank you again for being on the show. This has just been great. And I know our parents who are watching and educators as well appreciate this information to help our young people. So before you do go, if you could just share your social media information so that people can support the work you're doing and still follow you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love it if people would follow along if you're just interested in this journey, or if you have kids in your life and you want to bring entrepreneurship to them, whether they're your kids or their students. Definitely follow along, because I like to post lots of tips and things like that that can help you or your students if they're, getting started on this journey. My website is teachentrepreneurshipforkids.com. And on the website, you can find that free playbook. Educators can schedule a meeting if they want to talk with me. The free playbook. If you have a kid or a teen who wants to start a business and they need a little more support beyond that playbook, you can also schedule a call with me for free. And I'll help you if you're coming up with business ideas, or if you already have an idea and you need to talk about what are the first steps to execute. We can talk about all those things during a call that I'll offer, a 45-minute call to you and your kids for free. Instagram is the social media hotspot. That's where everybody is that's really interested in talking about this stuff. So that's probably the best place to go to follow me on social media. And my handle there is Hands-On Entrepreneurship for Kids. The 4 is the number 4 because I ran out of characters. I couldn't put FOR. So just remember it's the number 4. And then on Facebook, I'm also Hands-On Entrepreneurship for Kids. So you can find me there too. If you prefer Facebook, I am there.
All right, that sounds great. So thank you again, Patricia, for coming on the show, and we hope to talk to you soon to see how you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to talk to you more about this adventure I'm on.
All right. All right, take care.
All right, bye, Kwame.
All right, bye-bye. Well, there you have everybody. We're about to be done with another episode of IDTALK for Educators Live. And as always, if you want to be a guest on the show, you can email me at IDTALK4Educators@gmail.com. And you don't have to be a traditional educator in the classroom. If you're somebody who is in the community doing transformative work with the children or adults in your community, if you're a child advocate, if you're an athletic coach, whether you coach basketball, football, volleyball, whatever the sport is, if you are doing something that is educating people in your community and you have a story to tell, I want to have you on so we can share your story and highlight it, because people need to know what you are doing on this platform. And also, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the IDTALK for Educators Live podcast. We have it on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all other streaming platforms. If you just type in the title, it'll just come right up. And a final announcement, we have a quarantine sale going on with 2 of my books, Shaping the Teacher Identity, and the other book is, oh man, drew a blank. Oh yeah, the other book is From Inaction to Inaction, Create a New Normal for Urban Educators. They're currently on Amazon, so if you'd like to get a copy there, you can do that. But if you want to get an autographed copy from myself, you can get both of those books for $25. And I'll mail them to you personally during this quarantine period, because I know a lot of us need material to read to keep our brain stimulated. So if you are interested, you can email me at IDTALK4Educators@gmail.com, or you can DM me after the show or drop a comment in the comment section, and I'll be sure to connect with you on how you can get your copies. So that is it for today. I am your host, Kwame Sarfo-Mensah, and wherever you are in the world, good night, good morning, good afternoon, and we're going to do this again another time. Peace out, and be safe out there.